Hi, Ben here and welcome back to the Craft Lab. And today I thought it'd be good to actually show you how to maintain and get a really razor sharp edge on your Drawknife. Now, the Drawknife is a fantastic tool, but like all green woodwork tools, if you've got it razor sharp, it means that you're going to get a much better finish on the wood that you're using, but also it means that you're having to put less sort of calories in, so it makes it a little bit easier. Now, the Drawknife itself sometimes sort of throws people a little bit because it normally has a bevel on one side and then is dead flat on the other. Now, with most single bevel tools like this is, some people think that you only have to hone that one bevel, but you still have to actually hone and sharpen both sides, but obviously you just hold the sharpening medium at a different angle. So this is one of our Drawknives. It hasn't got a massively long blade. This is only an 8-inch blade, but it's got a convex bevel on this side and then a pretty much flat reverse side to the tool itself. So we thought we'd show you how to actually use the shave horse to actually help you sharpen this Drawknife. So being a single bevel tool, you've got to be a bit careful when you actually come to sharpen it. So you could use a vice, but because we're sat on the shave horse, this is probably just as easy to use. And what I'm going to show you how to use is a waterstone. You don't have to use a waterstone, but that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using a Japanese waterstone that's a combination grit with 1000 grit and 6000 grit. And before I start sharpening, this is still quite sort of polished, this bevel, even though it's lost that real razor edge to it. So just to help me sort of see where I'm actually making contact with that bevel, it's not a bad idea with the marker pen just to sort of colour in that bevel itself. Now, if you've been working with a timber like oak or sweet chestnut, you'll probably find that that bevel will tarnish and it will actually sort of make it black anyway, or certainly have a blue hue to it, so you don't necessarily have to bother with the marker pen. But when you're learning, that marker pen is a really good advantage because that's going to show whether we're actually holding the stone at the correct angle. Now we'll get our waterstone. That's only been soaking for a few minutes, but it's nice and saturated. And the reason why I say we're going to use the shave horse is that I'm actually going to help by holding the one handle of the Drawknife in the jaws of the shave horse itself. Now, if you're worried about the jaws of the shave horse sort of marking your handle, you could always wrap a little bit of waste cloth around it. If you haven't got a shave horse and you're only using your Drawknife with a vice, conventional woodworking vice, then obviously you could grip it in the vice. The main factor with sharpening a Drawknife or any edge tool is you always want to come from behind the cutting edge. So if we slip with the stone, we're not going to cut ourselves. So holding it in the jaws of the shave horse so that it's nice and supported, I'm going to lay the 1000 grit side of the stone onto the actual convex bevel to start with, and I'm going to start making small circular motions. And at the moment I'm holding that angle quite low, so it's actually removing some of that material from the back, sort of very back edge of the bevel. And then I'm going to gradually increase the angle of this hand. That's what determines the angle of the stone. So I'm just going to gradually increase that angle, and you'll see that it will remove the sort of next band of pen. Look, it's taken that next layer of pen off there. Now, this doesn't actually sharpen the Drawknife, but if we don't remove any of that material from that sort of back edge of the bevel, every time we sharpen it will become more and more obtuse if we only go to that very cutting edge. So it's worth taking a few sort of passes on that back edge of the bevel just to try and maintain that edge geometry, really. So you can see we've removed all that pen. If I remove a bit of that slurry, you should be able to see, but there's still all that pen at the very front edge of the bevel. So what I need to do now is just keep increasing that angle and keep doing a few more passes and keep increasing that angle still until we see that last little bit of pen disappear. Now at that stage we can still continue the sharpening process, but just don't increase that angle. If we keep increasing that angle as we go and go past that sort of very front cutting edge, you're just going to sort of round over the cutting edge and make the edge very obtuse. So the pen is a really good indicator for when we've actually got right through to that very front edge of the actual bevel itself. Now if you find that the stone dries out a little bit like that because it's still quite a warm day, just rehydrate it. The water really helps. It stops your stone wearing away, but also it'll help wash that slurry away as well from the cutting edge. And I'm also using my ears as well when I'm sharpening. It sounds daft when you say it that way, but yeah, I'm listening to the stone itself, and if I can hear that sort of sweet sound, then I know that I'm not making that angle too obtuse. If it's like sort of fingernails down a blackboard, that means that I've lifted that stone far too much, and we're going to actually be dulling the edge rather than sharpening. So I'm pretty happy that I've removed all that pen and I've got right through to that cutting edge. And as you can see, if I had slipped at any stage, there was no fear of me cutting my fingers, because my fingers would just hit that dull back edge of the draw knife. Now at that stage, before we flip it over, just very carefully with a bit of kitchen roll or a rag, just wipe off any slurry off that bevel itself. And you can see that we've removed material from this back edge, from the middle, and then we've got right through to that cutting edge as well. So we'll now flip it over, and we'll do that flat side that's on the back edge of the draw knife. And it's up to you, you could colour that in with pen, but this is a little bit easier to find the angle because it's sort of dead flat. You can lay that stone on there and pretty easily tell when the stone is hitting that flat reverse side of the draw knife. Now if you've got a pretty well maintained tool, this should be fairly well polished. If you're trying to sort of put an edge on an old draw knife that you've picked up from a yard sale or a car boot sale, and this is really rusty and really pitted, you're going to struggle to get a very sharp edge on it until you've polished it right back. So you might want to start with a coarser grade stone, you might even want to go to a grinder or a very coarse diamond stone. But this is still in pretty good nick because we sharpen this on a regular basis, so this 1000 grit is enough to just polish that edge. And that's looking pretty good. Now obviously this wasn't super duper blunt, it had just lost that real nice razor edge. It won't need much steel removing. So we'll just carefully use that cloth again just to remove that slurry. And you can see that we've pretty much polished right through to that cutting edge. Now if anything, we should have created a burr on that side now. We should have got those two sort of surfaces, those two angles to meet at one point, and the actual steel will hook over. So if anything, I should be able to feel a slight burr on this side, which I can there. There's a little, it's not much there. So if anything, you could flip it over, you could do a few more passes on this bevel side if you wanted to, until you've got a nice burr all the way along. And if you've got a burr, you know that you've pretty much polished those cutting edges to an absolute zero edge, and you've got that steel to hook over, and that's pretty much what you're aiming for really. So we'll do a few passes on that side, a few passes on that other side as well, flip it over. But you can see using the shave horse, it's so easy and convenient because I can let go, I can moisten my whetstone if I need to, and it just makes it a little bit safer. So carefully wipe off that slurry again. I'm just going to check for that burr. So now I can feel a slight burr pretty much all the way along now. So once I've got that burr, it's a question of polishing that burr away. So we'll use the same stone, but we'll flip it over and we'll use this finer grade. This is 6000 grit. And if you wanted to, you could always repen the bevels again to show you that angle. I'm quite sort of happy and confident that I can continue that same angle, that same action that we did before. And you can hear it's much finer. All it's doing now is polishing that edge and refining the scratches in that steel, and the finer the polish, the sharper it will be basically. So turn that over and do the same on the other side. Now I'm doing those sort of circular motions. You could go back and forth like that, but the advantage of doing those small circular motions is it tries to sort of prevent you wearing a great big groove in your stone all in one spot really. And if you do wear your waterstone, you can always check out one of our videos that actually shows you how to flatten your waterstone. So if you're using it for draw knives and then you want to sharpen your knives or your chisels and you want your stone to be absolutely dead flat, it's worth just flattening your stone off before you do those other tools. So very carefully just clean off that slurry. And now I want to see if I can still feel that burr. Now the burr should be slighter because obviously we've been polishing both sides. And I'm just actually going to check to see if I've got a bit of an edge. That's feeling like it's got a bit more bite to it now. Now you'll probably find if you come straight off a flat stone like that, that you'll always end up with a burr on the opposite side to the side that you've just sort of honed and sharpened. So the easiest way to remove that is to use a strop. I'll just get rid of a bit more of that nasty slurry. So we're going to use a paddle strop. So this is a piece of leather attached to a piece of wood, and this has been charged with some honing paste, and this is going to put a really nice polish on that draw knife. And I'm again always working away from the cutting edge, so I'm going to lay it onto the bevel and then push away. Don't draw the strop into the cutting edge because you'll find that it will actually just dull the tool. But you can see that that's really putting a nice polish on that bevel. Now some people would say that this is totally excessive for a woodworking tool, but we're relying on these tools to leave the finish on the woodwork. So we don't use sandpaper and things, so having that absolutely razor sharp tool makes it a joy to use and leaves a really nice smooth finish on our woodwork. So you can see it's really putting a nice luster on there. So as you get closer to the final finish with the strop, you want to go very gentle pressure and try and almost alternate from one side to the other because you're trying to wipe that burr off. So what I'll do now is just have a look down the cutting edge. Can't see any sort of light spots or anything, and then I can just carefully run off that cutting edge to make sure I can't feel any burr, and then I just sort of touch my thumb onto that edge and see if it sort of bites, and that's feeling pretty good now. Now obviously we've been using a waterstone. It's a little bit messy. I've got all sort of water slurry over my shorts and stuff, but because it's water it's not going to hurt us. It's not going to be like using an oil stone. That's part of the reason why I like using Japanese waterstones. Very easy and sort of easy to dry up any mess that you've made. Now the only disadvantage is obviously using water is there is a potential that you're going to leave moisture on your carbon steel tools and you could get corrosion. So we use one of these little Japanese camellia oil applicators, and that's the easiest way, just to apply a little bit of food safe oil to the tool, and it will protect it and drive any sort of moisture that's on the tool off. So if you were storing it now, that'd be the absolutely perfect way to store it. But as I've just sharpened it, I'm going to give it a little test run and see if it's got a really nice razor sharp edge on there. I could probably adjust this shave force just a little bit. And we'll try out this bit of sweet chestnut and see if it will cut. Oh. So not only is it cutting nicely, but you can see it's leaving this super smooth finish on the wood. It's almost putting like a shine on it, look. And that's the advantage of having razor sharp tools. There is no need to sand that. I mean, that's almost like the equivalent of like a 2000 grit sanded finish, but just done with one pass of a razor sharp draw knife. And that's a real joy to use. Oh yeah, that's lovely. So yeah, that's pretty much how you go about sharpening a draw knife. You could pretty much use that same technique for any single bevel tool, whether it be a bill hook or whether it be a draw knife, any of those sort of woodworking tools that you need to sharpen. Obviously this is dead flat on this reverse side, but if it had got a convex grind on both sides, you could use the same technique, but obviously you'd be using that first angle and that first method for honing both sides really. So I'll put a little bit more oil on there, and then I can store it away in a nice leather case, and then next time I need to come and use my draw knife, I know that it's going to be razor sharp and ready to go really. So that's how we go about putting an edge on one of our draw knives, but that's going to give you the techniques on any other woodworking tool and hopefully give you that amazing edge that's going to give you that fantastic finish. And that's what you're looking for when you're working with green wood really. So hope you've enjoyed that, and remember, please subscribe to the channel and tune in next time for some more craft videos. Thanks again.